All right, let's dive in. I've got to say, the stuff you sent over about GPT-4 is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody's talking about this new language model from OpenAI,
Hmm.
and we've got these excerpts from a research paper by Microsoft Research, plus some examples of what GPT-4 can actually do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really something.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so the big question everyone's asking, is this an early form of AGI,
Hmm.
or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a major leap forward.
Okay.
To really get why, though, I think we got to start with the basics. Like, what even is a large language model? An LLM.
Right, break it down for us.
Okay, so basically, picture a program that's been fed just a massive amount of text and code.
Like all of Wikipedia? More.
More, think like the entire internet, that's the scale we're talking about.
Wow.
And that's essentially how these LLMs are trained. They learn to predict, like, what word comes next in a sequence.
Okay.
And through that process, they pick up all these other skills. It's kind of mind-blowing.
So it's not just memorizing words, it's figuring out patterns and relationships.
Exactly. And with GPT-4, it seems to be happening on this whole other level compared to earlier models.
Okay, so what makes GPT-4 so special? The researchers at Microsoft, they're claiming it's not just mimicking, it's showing signs of, like, general intelligence.
Right, and that's where all this AGI talk comes in.
Artificial general intelligence, the big one.
Yeah, exactly.
So what have they seen that's got them so convinced?
Well, they ran a ton of tests, and GPT-4 is performing almost at a human level
Oh,
on all sorts of tasks. Stuff previous AIs couldn't even touch.
it's not just about fooling someone in a chat anymore.
Right, it's about showing a deeper understanding, making connections.
Okay, you've got me hooked. Give me the highlights. What can this thing actually do?
Oh man, where do we even start? It can write code in multiple languages, solve some pretty tough math problems, write poetry, compose music.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously, it can even create visual art.
Hold on, back up. You said it understands emotions. How is that even possible?
It's not like reading minds or anything,
Right.
but it can pick up on emotional cues in text, and its responses are surprisingly nuanced.
So, like, it can tell if I'm happy or sad just from how I'm typing?
It's more about the overall tone and the words you use, but
Yeah.
it's getting there. It even passed the Sally Ann test.
The what?
It's a classic psychology experiment. They use it to see if a kid understands that other people can have different beliefs.
Oh, interesting.
And GPT-4 nailed it.
Okay, that is both amazing and kind of creepy.
Hmm.
So, is this it then? Is the AI revolution finally here?
Well, I think it's a huge milestone, no doubt,
Mm.
but we also got to be real about its limitations.
Okay, like what?
One of the biggest is planning, or rather the lack of it.
So, it can write a poem, but it can't plan a grocery list.
It can follow instructions and generate stuff, sure, but it doesn't really think ahead the way humans do.
I see what you mean.
And that comes down to how it's built, this autoregressive thing.
Auto what now?
Basically, it means GPT-4 creates text one word at a time, always predicting the most likely next word.
Okay.
Like a supercharged autocomplete, but without a sense of the big picture.
So it's great at the micro level, but struggles with the macro.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where we start to see the difference between intelligence and true understanding.
All right, I'm starting to get it. But how does this play out in practice?
Uh-huh.
Can you give me an example of where this limitation trips GPT-4 up?
Sure. Let's take the Tower of Hanoi puzzle. You familiar with that one?
Vaguely. It's
Yeah.
that game with the pegs and the discs, right?
Yep. Pretty simple setup, but it takes some strategic thinking to solve.
Uh-huh.
And GPT-4 just can't seem to grasp the rules.
Really?
It makes moves that, like, totally violate the logic of the puzzle.
So it's like it can't see the forest for the trees.
Perfect analogy.
Fascinating. So maybe not a perfect intelligence, but it's definitely raising some huge questions.
No doubt.
Like, what does this mean for jobs, for creativity, even for how we relate to each other?
All valid questions, and ones we should definitely explore further as we go deeper with this.
Let's do it. I'm ready to dive deeper.
This whole thing about GPT-4's limitations, it kind of makes you think about the difference between intelligence, like we usually think of it, and actual understanding.
Yeah, for sure. We were just talking about the Tower of Hanoi puzzle, how it gets tripped up because it can't plan ahead.
Right.
Are there other examples of this, like this next word prediction trap that GPT-4 falls into?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You see it a lot when you try to get it to create something with specific constraints. Like, let's say you ask it to write a poem,
Mm-hmm.
but the first and last sentences have to be the same, just with the words reversed.
Ooh, that's tricky. A word palindrome, kind of.
Exactly. And GPT-4, it might produce something that looks right at first glance,
Okay.
but then you look closer and the last sentence is all jumbled, grammatically messed up, or just doesn't make sense.
So it's getting the words right, but not the meaning.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's focused on the surface, not the deeper structure.
Right, like it's stuck in this mode of just predicting the next word based on statistics instead of grasping the whole idea, the intention behind it.
Hmm. That's interesting. It makes me think about how we even measure true understanding in an AI.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
The researchers in this Microsoft paper, they actually have an interesting thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
They say the real test of understanding is whether an AI can create new knowledge.
Okay.
Not just repeating stuff it's learned, but actually coming up with something original, something that adds to our understanding of the world.
So, like proving a new math theorem or composing a symphony that changes how we think about music.
Exactly. That would be a sign that it's gone beyond mimicking, that
Mm.
it's actually capable of expanding human intelligence.
Wow.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think we're already seeing glimpses of that, even with the limitations GPT-4 still has.
Right.
What happens when we get past those limitations? What then?
That's when things get really interesting and maybe a little scary. I mean, if an AI can write like a human, code like a human, even create art like a human,
Hmm.
what does that mean for the future of work, for creativity? What does it even mean to be human in that kind of world?
Big questions.
Huge questions.
Okay, I'm ready to tackle some of those.
Hmm.
What about the societal implications? That's something we can't ignore.
Oh, absolutely not. One thing that comes to mind immediately is the whole misinformation problem.
Right.
Imagine an AI that can churn out fake news articles, social media posts that are so convincing you can't tell they're not real.
It's a scary thought.
It is. It could erode trust in everything, make the divisions in society even worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not just about spreading lies, it's also about the potential for manipulation. Remember we were talking about how GPT-4 can understand emotions?
Yeah.
Imagine that capability being used to exploit people, to play on their fears and desires.
It's like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie, an AI that can read you and then use that to control you.
Yeah, it's a scenario we can't just dismiss.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I also don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think if we understand these risks, we can work to avoid them, to make sure this technology is used for good.
So how do we do that? How do we make sure AI is serving humanity, not the other way around?
Well, education is key, for one thing.
Okay.
We need to be teaching people, especially the younger generation, about how AI works, what it can do, but also where it falls short.
Mm-hmm.
They need those critical thinking skills to be able to evaluate AI-generated content, to know what to trust.
And on a broader level, we need to be having those tough conversations about the ethics of AI.
Right, exactly. We need to have clear guidelines for how it's developed and used, and those guidelines need to reflect our values as a society.
It all circles back to that question of what understanding really means for an AI.
Yeah.
If GPT-4, with all its flaws, can already do this much, what will the next generation be capable of?
Honestly, it's a question that keeps me up at night sometimes. But I think instead of being afraid of the unknown, we should embrace the challenge, you know? We have this incredible opportunity to shape the future of AI, to make sure it leads to a better world for everyone.
Okay, you've given me a lot to think about here. But before we get too philosophical, I'm curious about the practical side of things.
Sure.
What are some areas where GPT-4, even with its limitations, could have a real positive impact?
Let's dive into that. Let's
Huh.
dive into that. So we've talked about the risks, but what about the good stuff? Where could GPT-4 actually make a difference, even with the limitations we've talked about?
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about.
One area I'm super excited about is education.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine like every student having their own personalized AI tutor, one that adapts to how they learn best at their own pace.
So no more one-size-fits-all classrooms.
Exactly. GPT-4 could help them grasp those tough concepts, give feedback on their writing, even create practice problems that target their weaknesses.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It could completely change how we learn.
It would be a game changer, especially for students who don't thrive in the traditional system.
Right, exactly. And then there's scientific discovery.
Okay.
GPT-4 could analyze huge data sets, finding patterns that humans might miss, like having this AI research assistant working alongside scientists.
Speeding up breakthroughs.
Totally, in medicine, materials, science, climate change, you name it.
So it's not replacing scientists, it's augmenting them.
Yeah, that's the key.
What about creativity? A lot of people worry AI will replace artists and writers.
I see it more as a tool, a collaborator.
Okay.
Imagine a musician working with an AI to compose a symphony, or a writer using GPT-4 to brainstorm ideas, beat writer's block.
Like a creative partner.
Exactly. Pushing you further, helping you see things in new ways.
It's pretty exciting to think about.
It is. I think the big takeaway is that we need to find ways for humans and AI to work together.
To combine our strengths.
Yeah, to create something neither could do alone.
That's a pretty optimistic vision.
I like to be optimistic.
Me too.
Right?
But we can't just ignore the potential downsides.
Yeah.
We talk about misinformation, manipulation, but there's also the impact on jobs.
Right.
If AI can do what humans do, but faster, cheaper,
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
what happens to those workers? It's a tough question.
It is. But I think by talking about it, anticipating these challenges, we can find solutions, make sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It feels like we're at this turning point. Like the choices we make now about AI will have ripple effects for generations.
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's so important for everyone to be informed, to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, this isn't just about tech. It's about what kind of future we want to build.
Exactly.
So for everyone listening out there, how do you see AI shaping your life? What role do you want to play in this?
It's something to really think about because this isn't just happening to us. We're all shaping this future together.
That's a powerful thought.
Stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Great advice. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us into GPT-4 and the future of AI.
My pleasure. Always fun to chat about this stuff.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of science and technology. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those questions coming.